Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Whales of Wall Street. A quant update video here for you guys today, QNT on the exchange. Before we go into this one, don't forget to smash the subscribe button if you have not done so already. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Welcome back if you've been with us for some time. Apologies for lack of videos the last week. I have been at the Digital Pound Foundation event on Wednesday just gone, amongst my usual working schedule. Now we've concluded that, I'm going to spend the next couple of days bashing out some videos for you guys, so let's get back into the momentum. The quant video that we did last time was around a month ago. This was very focused certainly on the Project Rosalind updates and particularly the integration of quant within that, and we of course updated more recently before that as well the Overledger integration too. Now these have been the most significant detailed updates from Quant in that kind of period of time. Nothing major since then, just a little bit that I wanted to cover here around Overledger in general. This came out about 10 or so days ago. Of course, Overledger now launched and it's opening up the opportunity for any kind of like businesses or coders to come into the system and start developing on the Quant network, which is absolutely fantastic. Of course, we know they're in cooperation with the financial world moving forward. Their integrations with Oracle from the cloud perspective too. So this development is really interesting because when we talk about utilization and certainly people coming into the space more and more, we can also not just talk about this from a retail perspective or like general users. We can also talk about this from a business perspective as well. So the ability now, where in the past, is a great point. A lot of chains charge things like the gas fees, you know, the transaction fees. So like you have to like pay, for example, if you're utilizing Matic and you're using your MetaMask, you have to use some of that Matic in your backend to pay for that transaction, albeit not too much, but it depends on how big your transactions are, right? When you're talking about a business level, these could be humongous amounts of money and thus higher costs in terms of gas fees, for a better word. However, the utilization of the Overledger platform now allows that to slightly change in terms of the deployment of tokens or the utilization of cryptocurrency to be able to have to pay for that. So it mentions here, instead of having to hold cryptocurrency to pay for deployment gas fees, by the way, this point here is relating to the fact that a lot of companies hold cryptocurrency in the back end because they're building on certain systems, networks or chains. And that obviously complicates their budgetary systems. It can be very expensive depending on how much they're doing. The Overledger users can pay the platform credits which are charged in fiat currency. So this is kind of like a variation really of like end users like you and I being able to use ramp facilities to convert currency from fiat currency quite easily with the use of our debit cards or credit cards, etc., on a multitude of different platforms. Swipeblocks is a great example of that. But from a business perspective, that's not perhaps always as easy. So this is why something like this is very beneficial because again, it speeds up that process. It makes it more accessible for deployment, for integration, for development, everything you can possibly think of when it comes to this. So this is a really interesting move and little article that was on here. It's not a gigantic one, but it gives you a bit of an understanding of like what is possible. So you've got the option of utilizing the MetaMask, which was mentioned a minute ago, or the option of using the platform credits as well. And this is of course again leading back to that opportunity of enhancing that quant price over time. People always say, why are these prices not moving? Well, one, we're in a winter market, and two, the full integration and utilization isn't fully there yet. So give it a few years, guys, and we're going to see some massive traction on some of these big financial related cryptocurrency assets that we hold in our portfolios. We'll go into the price and everything in the chart shortly, but I thought this was a really interesting element to discuss. So this new feature applies to all QuantSmart tokens, so Base, Flex and Vari, and integrates seamlessly with the Overledger token flow as seen below. It's not very massively detailed, but you can kind of understand where that's going. So again, just building the interoperability aspect, building the opportunity for accessibility, and really opening up to that business world, which of course is a multi-trillion-dollar market in general, if you consider the amount of different sectors and industries around the world that could really benefit from this. So just a bit of an uptake on that. The other point I just wanted to make before we go into the chart was this. This was actually, I think, come out today. Really cool little article as well as a video put in here. I'm just going to show you a snippet in a second, and I'll leave a link in the description or the comments below for you guys to watch at your own leisure as well. I've done a separate video on the Digital Pound Foundation recap of the event that I went to, but I always find it quite interesting because when people ask the questions about programmability and potentially like dystopian world coming with CBDCs and stuff, there tends to never be a direct answer about it. And I love Quant, I love their team, but of course it's always funny to see the different responses. But Gilbert and Quant are absolutely fantastic. So they go to delve into a bit more information about that side of things as well. So let's have a quick listen, see what you think. I want to know your comments below on these kind of matters. But as I said, I'll leave a link after this video anyway, so you can watch the whole thing. It's really fascinating, and it's always nice to hear from the Quant team. It kind of gives you inspiration as to what can happen in the future, and ultimately as we're investing now, how that price point could ultimately increase over time. So let's for sure have a quick listen to what Gilbert has to say here.
There's been a few arguments that this could potentially create more surveillance, more control by the government, and people from certain sectors are saying this could possibly lead to some kind of Orwellian state. What do you think of when you hear these arguments against programmable money?
So the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England actually stated that CBDCs and this new form of money is going to be private but not anonymous. And it's going to be in line with the existing form of regulation, the existing form of compliance that all banks and commercial banks need to do. It's not going to be any different to them, and it's not going to be any different to consumers and to businesses. I guess the concern has been, can the government look at what I'm doing if there is a legal need to? They don't need a CBDC. The government has the powers, the regulation, the laws are there. Law enforcement can ask for data if there is something happening within a suspicious account. That will not change. But what will change is the central bank having the ability to understand the systemic risk in a financial system. By having central bank money, we could actually potentially prevent the global financial crisis that we had in 2008, 2009, because you're able to see and understand the flow and the risk as a whole.
Can you give any real world use cases where programmability could be brought into use?
As businesses and as consumers, we have programmability in the way we use the internet. And that is very unique and useful to us because we're able to automate a whole bunch of things. We can schedule emails, we can put APIs together to say if something happens, then do Y. Using technologies, internet technologies that we have at our fingertips, we can actually apply that same type of logic to money for the first time by having money become smart and become programmable in a new way. And so what we can do as consumers is potentially remove a lot of friction that we have today. So for example, you're expecting a delivery, you've paid to the supplier, it comes and it's the wrong delivery. And then you have to go and get a refund, send it back. There's a lot of friction, a lot of pain points. But with a programmable type of money, you can actually say, if the delivery arrives on time, it is the right size, it is the right good that I ordered, then release the funds. So you don't have to go and do refunds. Another example is direct debits. Everyone gets their payment from their employer at the end of the month, or the middle of the month, and you have direct debits going out. But sometimes it's different when it's processed. So you can't control when your utility goes or your mortgage goes. You can't control which time it goes out. So with programmability, you can actually say, when my salary comes in, take the mortgage and then the utility bills 1 hour after, so you don't get overdrawn and you don't have those issues that people face. So there's a lot of benefit to that.
A lot of these innovations have been, I suppose, developed in the blockchain.
So obviously that's really interesting to see those kind of points related from Gilbert. I think the main thing here is that the frameworks are consistently being built, the piloting and trialing of CBDC systems are being trialed across the world right now. I think a statistic out of the Digital Pound Foundation event the other day was 9 out of 10 banks worldwide are piloting or infiltrating a CBDC system, whether that's interbanking or for an actual governmental level, i.e. the population will be using this in the near future system. And it's quite apparent that there's a bit of tension building perhaps within parliamentary and banking systems and arguably the companies that are building these kind of frameworks, in the sense that there's a bit of a race The Western market appears to be very behind some of the areas, for example, like China, Russia, have already got frameworks and systems in place. They've been even trialing them and utilizing them in the real world scenarios for even the last 4 or 5 years. And even the countries like here in the UK, it's just talking. It's just talk, but we know it's coming. And is the delay in that a good or a bad thing will be remaining to be seen. I think in general, the way that we need to educate people, not just in business, but also educate people on the general public, is massively missing. It's hugely missing. And it's certainly something that eventually, like very soon in my opinion, because if they are looking to switch all this stuff on from 2025 onwards, running out of time. I do understand that they will probably bring in like the wholesale business aspects first and then maybe focus on retail. That doesn't mean that they won't build the retail systems or frameworks now, because there's no point wasting time or missing out on that. But it's very interesting to see that there is a lack of information to the general public. I still totally believe that 95% of the population have no idea what CBDCs are, what the implications are to them as people, as businesses, and not necessarily from the development perspective. It's more about the utilization of it and what can and cannot be done with it as well in terms of potential programmability, data privacy, etc. So these topics need to be answered in my opinion, and there's not enough talk about it. And I think this is a great opportunity for me to kind of like have these kind of videos to talk about them in more detail, more about some of the concerns, the pros and the cons, etc. of all these different things. But I also implore all of you guys out there to just even mention the word CBDC to people around you. And it doesn't have to be like a high horse moment about like more than them, etc. I think it's just to mention those 4 letters and what central bank digital currency is and what it stands for. But giving them, whether it be links or articles or information about this coming. Because I think the more people that hear about it, the more stance there will be to be like, actually, I'm going to get involved more in surveys. I'm going to get more involved in the regulation side of it, or I want to stand against it or for it, whatever it might be. I just feel like sometimes we have to do things ourselves, because there was a consensus survey we know, or some of us know, throughout the Bank of England website that gave the opportunity over the last 9 months or something for people to register their arguments or concerns, whatever it might be, in this survey about CBDCs. And I think there was an argument that whether 50,000 people filled it out or 10,000 people filled it out, that's just the UK, guys, and that's pretty poor considering our population size, and only 50,000 people signed it or even looked at it and put their comments in. Yeah, of course it's time consuming, but this shouldn't just be discussed about with people that already know about CBDCs. It should be discussed with everyone. It should be part of our voting system, which is why I have these kind of partial concerns around it at the moment, because it is quite hidden still. There's no full direct answers anytime. At any point, so it's quite interesting to see that. So we just have to keep on top of it, keep pushing each other to think about it, to promote this conversation, and see what can be done about it, or at least get the answers that we really want out of it. That's all I would say at this point. But hopefully this video has kind of given an extra intake on what's going on with Quant the last few weeks. As I said, it's been relatively quiet. But I thought though that video, particularly if you watch the whole thing, is really interesting. Points that are made, some we already know, some already things that are kind of in the fruition or pipeline of things that have been thought about and processed within their network and the frameworks they're trying to build. So let's keep an eye on that. But it's a good opportunity now, guys, to talk about the price point of Quant. It kind of relates nicely into what we've already just mentioned in terms of, well, there's arguments people say like, why is this not moving? Why is it this way or that? This $100 mark has been staring us in the face for some time, really. I know it's had its fluctuating patterns up to 120. It's even dipped down to as low as sort of $95 also. So it's a good opportunity in the sense that there's a lot of stability here. It is messing about with these 2 fractional areas of the fib retracement. And yes, it has dipped down, it's tested those lower regions, but it's very much returned quite quickly on each of those times. However, I do still have my crazy purchase options here on limit orders at $87. I do still have one even lower than that. I think it's around $64, $65, if I remember correctly. I have to check. But that's in there just for the purpose of if there's a retaliation in the market for whatever reason or a downturn. It could even be a snapshot drop like we saw in these coming areas where we saw significant valuations depleting that could put it down to those potential areas in the past. And to reiterate my point that I've made on pretty much every quant video, the other reasons behind having those tractional areas is because historic data would suggest that we haven't had enough touch points around these areas to confirm that this is a support level officially. So that's why my marker is still there on that particular area. But the point being is that we're getting into really stable areas. And if we're looking at that DCA strategy, dollar cost averaging strategy, where we don't chuck all our money in at one go, we observe an analysis of historic data and what's in front of us, we could say that this around this $100 mark is actually quite a stable position. Yes, it could come down lower. Yes, it could go half than that. But in the reality of the project moving forward, yes, we will probably see significantly higher values of quant in the future. So there's that argument, but also the fact that, well, yes, it might come down, so I will have those strategic buy options at lower areas. However, we can argue that if you are a short-term trader, there is plenty of, I wouldn't call it volatility, but certainly decent moves here to take advantage of these big spectrum moves. If you look here, for example, 26th of May, $97, but then by the time of the end of the month, i.e. a few days later, we jumped up to 120. I mean, that's a pretty significant move if you've got enough of the quant in there, or you're making those sort of $20 positions each time, comes back down. We have this repeated pattern. The only thing I would say from a trend line perspective is we're still in that downward momentum that we've seen pretty much from October last year, really, in the grand scheme of things. If we just drew a line of average, you would see that it's kind of concluding itself, which again would argue my point in my favor potentially to say that that trend line, as it's still coming down and bobbling down, would eventually come and test these areas again. Could be in a few weeks, could be over the next month or two. We'll have to see as this winter market develops. I don't believe we'll go into proper cycles until next year. We'll have to see that, but we're already like nearly 3/4 of the way through 2023 already. I can't believe how fast this year is going. But there's some sort of decisive areas of interest for me personally. On the RSIs on that bottom left hand side, for some reason there's a dinosaur there, just under those for reference. You can see there that with the 14 days on 48 and the 28 days on 47, these are too high in my personal aspiration to accumulate quant more and more. I tend to wait certainly for that 14 day to come to around the sort of 42 to 45 mark at least. That's if you're a day trader or a short-term trader, they're very incremental relative strength indexes to go towards. The 28 day, I'm just an accumulator of quant, to be honest, in the long term. I'm not selling quant until we get to significant numbers, like way over 1,000. But the point still stands that even from an extra verification, that 28 day, 90 day RSI is still quite high. So if I can get, we can see that coming down to like 45, 42, or as near as 40 as possible, that's a bit of a bite mark for me personally. And that could mean it still stays around this $100 mark. It just means it becomes more stable over time. Or it might mean that we just drop down slightly below again to 95 perhaps, or indeed maybe to that significant market that I've been waiting for some time to come back down there. Last time we saw it was September last year. Could it be a year anniversary that happens again? We'll have to remain to be seen. Other than that, guys, performance-wise, it's not too bad. Not too bad. It's negative on most of them, but it's not too bad at all. Like we're very much near that break-even 0% mark. The only one that's down is the 6-month one. So it does feel like and visualize itself and data-wise showing that actually, yes, it is still in a bit of a downward trend, but it's slowing itself down. It's not like as aggressive as a lot of the other assets. It has been a gradual move downwards, and we can clearly see and know every day that this around about this $100 mark is a very conclusive area of interest for people to be accumulating and floating it above water. Essentially, we could argue that if we put a shift of water in here, it's doing quite well to float ahead. But on the other hand, if we look at this, we can see those volumes are diminishing slightly, so there's not too much going in and out each day. Yes, of course, paydays come in at the end of the months usually, and we do see some influx, but generally speaking, is like, okay, this could be a defining moment where are people happy here to go, cool, this is stabilized, I'm going to take more advantage of this and it flies up, or do we come and test these lower regions because people are just like coming a bit stagnant about it? and just maybe getting bored of it or whatever, and that transpires it to come back down. Let's see what happens, guys. But then my thoughts and opinions around the Quant token and its movements within the chart. Other than that, guys, it's been interesting to see at least a couple of minor developments or thought processes around Quant over the last month. If anything big comes out, of course, we'll do a big video. I don't want to do too many wasted videos on things that perhaps don't come out with massive intricate detail, but I still think it's important to remind ourselves how powerful Quant Network is and will be in the future, the great team behind it, and for sure what it's getting involved with. It's just absolutely humongous for the financial system and we as users in the near future. Thanks for watching the video, guys. We'll catch you in the next Quant video very soon. Take care and bye bye.